Hey guys, happy Monday! Woo! It's time for another episode of The Creative Hustle, and today I am joined here by my usual two co-hosts, Jay Nicholson and Katelyn Bellefontaine. If most of you don't know, or maybe you do, Katelyn is also a co-author of an East Coast wedding planner, a wedding planner here on the East Coast, and her co-authors are Lisa MacPherson from Scribble and Script and Elegant Paper Co., and Rebecca Dimock from Paper Chain and Elegant Paper Co. So these
among many other things.
Yeah. I mean, they do it all. Today, we're going to chat a little bit about their book, what it was like to be published, how do you even get published, and what's it like publishing a book here on the East Coast with such a niche book. Let's start by asking you guys, how did this kind of come to be, this book?
Well, Katelyn used to come into the store that Lisa and I worked in a lot with clients and asked about wedding planning books and how there wasn't really very many. And Lisa was like, have you ever thought about writing a wedding planning book? Sure. And Katelyn was like, that's my dream. So the three of us were like, let's make one. And then a lot of time went by. We did nothing. And then
more time went by.
Yeah, True. More time went by.
More nothing.
Then we finally met. We sat down at a restaurant, talked about what exactly we wanted to make. And then more time went by.
And nothing.
You have lives. Like, you have to continue on with your life.
Yeah.
But then sometimes ideas need time to kind of bubble.
Yeah,
it's
you're
true.
right.
Sure, yeah. So once we figured out exactly what we wanted to do, we created this, document. It was more like an invitation,
It was like a gift.
It's like a booklet
presentation folio.
It was beautiful. I worked really hard on designing it and making it look nice. And I remember sitting in the office in my apartment no, that's not good enough. No, that's not good enough. And I made so many versions of it. I finally made it. And then Lisa and Katelyn did some research on where we should take it to see who was going to want to actually publish the book. Mm-hmm. And I'll let Lisa explain the rest.
Yeah, without knowing really anything about doing that. None of us had close connections with people who had gone through it. So we were really just kind of doing it blindly, which I'm sure a lot of people who want to make a book do. Yeah. And because of the theme of the book being local and being very East Coast, I think that we were drawn towards places that were based here and that would appreciate what we were trying to share. So we found a local publisher here in Halifax, and we asked for a meeting, we got a meeting, and it was...
it all just unfolded from there.
It all unfolded from there.
What was it like going into that meeting? Was that scary?
We were so nervous.
Yeah.
We were bright-eyed. We brought this little booklet that we made.
Yeah.
And we were like, wow, we really hope that they want to make this book. They probably won't. Mm-hmm. We don't really know.
No.
This idea is okay.
Yeah.
So
we had maybe a few pages written, I think.
Yeah.
A few pages written, and we had it was all inspiration. It was tied together with a beautiful bow, and it was essentially this, piece that we said, we want to create this book. Here's a snippet of the knowledge that will be included in it. Mm-hmm. But this is truly the quality of what we're looking for.
Our vision of what it would look like.
Yes.
The style of it. Yeah.
Knowing us, we overplanned
before
we went in.
Of course
we were like, here's half of your book already.
Yeah.
And they were like, what? So we showed them. They were so excited by this booklet we made because it was physical. It was tactile. It was beautiful because that's something about the book that we really wanted to show is how beautiful this book can be. It's not just a regular paperback, So they were so excited by it, and in that first meeting they said, we want to write the book. We want to make the book. So we were like, really?
Okay.
Really
so that part happened really quickly.
It did.
That's amazing. And I have to ask you guys, I know it's so great and wonderful now because the book is out in stores and people are buying it and it's gaining traction. I need to know the nitty gritty. What was the most challenging thing? Jane and I were around when you guys were editing this. Katelyn at one point had to take home our 27-inch desktop MacBook because her edits wouldn't open on her laptop.
Because it was so big.
And then nobody at one point wanted to talk about the book for a week because we weren't allowed talking about it. It was not allowed. So
it was an off-limits topic of conversation.
So tell us, I don't want to say the bad parts, but what were the bad parts to get to the good parts?
There were a lot of struggles. So I think, once we got over the hurdle of like, we had an idea and now we had buy-in to our idea, they cut us a check. Like, they wrote us an advance. They gave us like actual dollars.
So you're on the hook.
Yeah, so we're on the hook. We signed a contract. That contract had deadlines, and we had to work towards those deadlines. And I think one of the first deadlines was, right at the very end of one of our busiest wedding seasons. So it was like, okay, we have to get this book written. I have to get this book written, because really, unless you have the content, there's not really a whole lot else that can be done. I think book creating goes in phases of like idea, writing, design, and then the execution piece of it. So my biggest hurdle was literally just sitting down and writing this book. I was grateful that the very first thing that I did way back when we were still in the idea phase was break out the sections of the book. So how the different chapters would be and what topics would be touched on within every single chapter. So literally, I basically had my essential formula, and I would go, and it was fall of maybe 2017, I think, and I would sit at the tall tables at the Second Cup in Bedford, just outside Mark's Work Warehouse there, and I would look out into the parking lot, and I would just like type and type and type and type, and this was like excruciating.
Yeah.
Like it was probably the hardest thing that I've ever done. I am not a writer. Like in school, I'm like a math and science girl. That's like my strong suit. Like took stats just to get an A+ and boost my GPA in university, but got D's in English. So like almost like didn't ever flunk a course, but pretty much flunked out of English in university. So yeah, essentially writing the book and getting the information from my head to the page was excruciating. So then there was that. And then once I finally got that done, I finished it like over the Christmas holidays, because I just like could not go into the new year with this book still looming over me and like all of these words needing to get down on paper. Like, I don't even know where the information came from. It just like flowed from my brain to my fingertips without like me even being a part of like the conscious process. Like, I don't know. I read the book now, some of the sections, I'm like, who wrote this? Like, where did this information come from? Because it doesn't sound like me. So then we had to submit it, and I had to send it into Whitney, our editor at Nimbus, and wait for the edits to come back from her. And I was literally like truly expecting her to tear it up, to tell me that I was a horrific writer, that I needed to start from scratch and rewrite everything. And really, she came back with edits, like significant edits, but really like nothing crazy, pretty much just spelling and grammatical errors, a few things that she'd be like, maybe we could say it this way, or perhaps we want to switch these sections around so that it flows a little bit better. But the editing process was actually really a lot smoother and more streamlined than I expected. But that's when I ended up having to bring the computer home, because it was such a large file at this point and I needed to hold it all in one file with all of the track changes, that my computer, it couldn't even handle it. So I remember lugging your
We're good for something.
great big MacBook home, and I set it up on the kitchen table, and I just sat there and I accepted every single one of her edits. And then after it was edited, it went on to Rebecca.
Well, sort of. When Katelyn was writing the book, I was really excited to design it. And typically, publishers have their own in-house designers, or they have their own freelancers that design books for them. So when we came in and we said, Rebecca's going to design it, they were like,
What?
And
we were like, yep, this is what's going to happen.
They were like, okay, we'll figure that out. So then I'd never designed a book, so I was like, they're going to know I don't know how to design books. So, and if they did know, we told them that.
Of course.
So I just pretended, and I just figured it out as I went along.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah. So while Katelyn was writing, I was designing at the same time. I thought it would be more efficient this way. Mm-hmm. But when the text was edited, I had to go back and edit my design. But I guess I missed a few things, and that kind of threw a little bit of a wrench in it near the end, because the editors had to go through it a couple more times, and now I learned my lesson from my next book, for the next book that we design. But that was something else that like was something that I didn't even really think of was
this is going to get edited.
Yeah,
and this
and
text
then-
could
yeah.
significantly change.
But on the flip side of that, I had a very short window to actually
You had
design
a
it. If
quick
I hadn't
deadline.
have started designing it, I don't know if I could have designed it by the deadline. So I'm glad that I did. It kind of sucked that I didn't catch all the edits, but I'm really glad that it kind of worked out the way that it did. And in addition to that, we outsourced photos, and Lisa took care of a lot of that.
So how was that?
That was
How
the
was
whole
the
task.
organization and
It
that
was
whole,
a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. We put a call out for photographers, specifically local, so the East Coast provinces and Newfoundland and Labrador, and we waited till we got like submissions back, and we were, very careful to kind of like tell everybody that like you may or may not be included, and thanks for your participation.
But we thought people were going to be like knocking down our
Yes,
doors
we did.
with their photos.
We
Well, I
definitely
would think
did.
that they like
Promotion?
So typically, we should explain this. When you're in the wedding industry and you shoot a wedding, you submit, well, you can submit the photos to like a blog, and then they'll feature it, or a magazine, and then they'll feature it. So that's kind of the angle we were going on with this. So we were asking for real weddings in Atlantic provinces that we could feature within the book, because we really wanted to feature local photographers and local venues and all that really great stuff. So I just wanted to preface why we did it this way.
For sure.
Yes, for sure. So real weddings were really important, and we wanted a lot of outdoor scenery that was like people might even recognize, and venues that people might even recognize, so that when brides or grooms were going through the book later on, they would direct them to certain spots in the East Coast. Yeah.
If we're being honest, Rebecca, you could have filled the pages of that book with images from
Stock
only
photos.
from only Elegant Productions weddings
true.
from one photographer,
Yeah.
two photographers if we so chose. But we felt so strongly that this is, even though this is our book and it's my words and I own Elegant Productions and we have all these beautiful images of Atlantic Canadian weddings that we want to share, we wanted to share the love of the pages and the design and each section of the book. We didn't want it to just come out of our files.
Yeah, we wanted to feature loads of different vendors, loads of different photographers, because there's so many talented ones.
But this is where we got pushback, and maybe Lisa, you can expand on that. Yeah, to expand on it. Go for it.
let's get into it.
Well, I mean, it's always tricky doing something like this, because you're not in control as much as you would be if we had have done it the way they were just discussing, just sort of like sourcing like our own weddings that we do with Elegant Productions and whatnot. One of the things that
Came up
was that this offer to submit to be a part of the book for the photographers was not going to be monetarily
compensated.
So you won't get paid.
You wouldn't get paid for having your images featured
A
in the
nice
book.
way of saying we don't have money to pay you.
Exactly.
But
Give
the
us your
trade-off is the promotion.
You won't get paid necessarily, but your images would be in a book.
You'd be
that
published.
Would be, that is going to be sold like all across Canada and on the East Coast of the States.
Yeah.
And you could be, it didn't even matter at what point in your career you were. If your photo fit the section and fit that particular part, then we would feature it, and the exposure would be great. And people throw the word exposure around as like a very negative thing, and it can be in certain contexts. But for this, we really felt, as vendors who have submitted and have had our work used and not been compensated for it, that this was just a really good opportunity for any small business owner, creative artist in the East Coast to get like catapulted really, by being in the pages of
Not
this.
just that, but if you're an established business, how wonderful is it that, on your promotion, your website, or if you're at trade shows, as seen in an East Coast wedding
course.
planner.
Right.
You're at Chapters, you're at Kohl's, you're at Indigo, you're on Amazon.
Everyone's credited in there.
Every single
credited.
photographer on every page has their name on the page their photos are featured on.
Yep.
We've even had a photographer reach out to us and tell us that she's booked people from
because
the book.
of the book.
From
They
the
found
book.
her images in the book, and then they chose to book
That's
her.
awesome.
We're booking clients. We're booking clients from the book. And I fielded all the questions of like, well, Kate, aren't you afraid to put your entire process down in a book and sell it for $50?
Yeah.
I was like, no. Because the people who are going to buy this book need it. They require this information to help them plan their wedding in a really successful way. And they 90% of them likely weren't going to hire us anyways. And if we're able to capture, another 5 to 10% of those who do buy the book to convert them to actual planning clients, then all the better.
Sharing is like just sharing your knowledge. It shouldn't be something that anyone is afraid to do, because the more you share, the more conversations you have.
But I want to know if it was like, was it just one photographer?
No, it was multiple
multiple
photographers. We heard from a few. Yes, we've heard from 2 photographers who were disappointed with us for having had the audacity to ask photographers to submit and not compensate for their images. Because, and you know what, they are completely within their rights to have these feelings, and I respect those feelings. And we talked about this on past podcasts, because in any other published book situation, there is a staff photographer. There is a hired photographer who is paid for their work to shoot the images that go within a book. Right. So they're completely within their rights to feel upset about this. I think, it just really, it's one point of view versus our point of view, but being creatives and being 3 women who were very passionate about this project, to kind of, hear how our thoughts of inclusivity with this book were being perceived in a negative light. It hurt. It was disappointing.
But
we also have
collaborative.
And we also have to remember that these photos weren't shot for this book.
No. Right.
These photos were shot for the people that are in them.
They
and
existed
photographers
already.
were paid for the photos they took, and they were just sitting on a hard drive somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's just one more level of
exposure,
which we thought was a positive thing.
Yeah.
And it's okay to have, different opinions
Totally
from the
okay.
rest.
Yeah, of course.
I know with our business, we collaborate with vendors a lot for our time, just for free, for exposure. Do we need exposure at this point in our business? Probably not, but just the opportunity to work together and help one another is really nice. Not saying that, people who don't do that are in the wrong by any means.
They just have a different business model.
You can choose to say no to something like this, and there's no right or wrong.
Yep.
So
but there still is someone receiving it on the other end. There's
Yeah.
a
It
human
hurts.
receiving. I saw something the other day of someone, no matter, before you go write a Google review, before you go make a tweet, before you go put something out there, just think about there is an actual human on the other end. If you're sending an email and you're feeling a little bit feisty in the moment, like just think about there's another person on the other side of that receiving it and how you're going to affect their day.
No, that's a really good point. I remember, this is like kind of irrelevant, but like one day I got takeout from a small local business, and I was like, it was nothing what I ordered, and because it was takeout, I already was home, and I was ready to go on Google and write that up. But I like took a moment and I was like, it's like a local business. I don't want to like stain their Google, because I know Katelyn, you received
my Google rating is ruined. It's gone forever.
So I didn't want to do that to someone just because of like them forgetting a few of my things. So I just I took a step back and realized that there was a human on the receiving end of that.
And honestly, I don't think people realize, I guess we're going on a tangent here, but I don't think people realize the effect a negative review has on a small business.
Exactly.
It really
negative
does.
review, nasty email in an inbox, even just a comment in made from one person to another that was heard, from ear to ear. And it just, it stings. And when you're in a small industry, in a small province, in a small city, it gets around.
Yeah.
So are there any other big challenges that you guys faced
Yeah.
that you can think of?
There's been tons of challenges.
So
Oh my gosh.
we got the first copy of the physical book, and we were really excited to look at it, and we flipped through it, and we were so excited, and it was so pretty, and it was everything we wanted it to be, except for a few things. So there was a few editing errors that weren't caught, and that's possibly my fault because I didn't flow it through properly.
I don't think so. I think it's a collaborative fault. I think there was difficulties flowing it through. I think that when I wrote it, I wasn't looking at it ever again. I accepted those changes that Whitney, the editor, sent through to me, but I didn't read it.
And honestly,
I was done.
We were all over it. We were
it.
like, just get it printed already.
Yeah.
Like, just do it. We don't care anymore, honestly. So when we got it, there was a few text errors. There was a little bit design changes that weren't approved by me that I was like, why? So that was a little bit weird, and it kind of dampened it a little bit for us when we first got it, although we were really excited to have it because it turned out beautifully. We love the cover, we love the pages, we love the texture of the paper, the photos look gorgeous, but those little things,
when you're reading a chapter and you find something, and then you flip a few pages and you find something else, it's like, oh my goodness, like if I'm finding this, what's the reader going to find? And there we go. There's going to be Amazon reviews. Great book, but my God, these girls, they sure as hell can't type.
Although we were reassured that that's very normal. A lot of first editions of books have those. And that's why first editions are so rare and special to find. People save them because they have those funny little errors in them. So whoever gets the first edition of this,
you're welcome.
Fun.
You're welcome. Yeah.
So could you guys kind of, for our listeners and viewers out there, kind of bullet point take us through the steps of getting, having the idea, getting it published, what you do for promotion, and once it's released?
Yeah.
Do you want to go around in a circle?
So step one,
come up with the idea.
Step 2,
nurture the seed with
find
water and coffee.
Create a crew. Everything. You can go so much farther together than you can alone.
Yeah. The support system was really a big thing. Like, we came together and sat on Lisa's couch and read through everything. Yeah. And that was really special because imagine if you're just doing that by yourself. How blah would that be?
I'd cry.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would you say step 3 is, Lisa?
I think step 3 is after, the initial sort of conversation and then the, that first sort of serious meeting. It's very important not to let something sort of die a little death and lose something, because the momentum gets lost and you're so busy in your day-to-days that it's that thing that's cool, but the further you go without
the farther you get away from it,
the easier it is to let it go.
Right, because this took us how many years? Over
2 years.
Over
2.5.
Was it 2.5?
2.5 years.
To do. So this could have been done within a year.
Well, you
but
guys
it
are
wasn't.
all working full-time jobs.
Exactly.
For yourselves.
And trying to write a friggin' book. That's crazy.
Right.
But if I'm being honest, I wrote it in 3 months.
Yeah.
So
it was the aftermath.
It was everything. It was the procrastination. It was the time that it took to write it, the time that it took to edit it, design it. It was producing it. This book is a beast. This was produced overseas. Yeah. It's local, and a local author, but it was produced overseas.
That's actually something that I wanted to touch on. We're stationery designers. We create things and we put them together with our hands, and we are in control of every step of the production. And with the book, we weren't. And it was difficult because we had to put a lot of trust in someone else to take care of it, and kind of just we crossed our fingers.
Yeah.
It turned out absolutely beautifully. There were definitely things that we changed along the way, what the physical book looked like. But I think we were all a little uncomfortable with giving up that control.
Yeah. And I think that's also our personalities in general.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I think
We're doers.
So what's after that? You guys brought it to the...
So we got it.
You go to the publisher.
Yep.
Ask them
Pitch.
ask them to make your
pitch.
book.
Yep.
And then honestly, the publisher pretty much did everything from there. They told us when to have it written by. They told us when to have it designed by.
They edited it.
They just gave us deadlines.
Production details, costs. They sold it. They had it sold before it even arrived, so they knew exactly what stores it was going in. They did pre-sales. They handled getting it up on Amazon. And then by the time it came in, it just arrived at their doors. They shipped it out to all the places, and now it's on the shelves.
So would you
ready to
recommend
sell.
working with a publisher versus self-published?
For us, we would have never been able to create the book this way. So
it wouldn't have been.
It wouldn't have looked like that in any way. It was an expensive book to create.
Yeah.
And, we sold, I think they said over 400 copies in the first month. There's no way we would have had the investment to be able to dump into the book to get it.
Maybe we talk about how that works. Like, we didn't pay a dime.
No, we got paid to make this book.
Yes, so we didn't have to pay to get it made.
The production costs.
Nothing.
So Nimbus did all that. So we were really lucky that.
But then the trade-off with that is that we don't own the book.
Exactly.
So we are just the authors of the book. Right. And then for every book that is sold, we get upcut. We get a percentage quarterly. So, we don't, that's why we had to let go of a lot of the decisions, a lot of, where it was being produced and why it was being produced a certain way, why it was priced the way it was priced, where it's being sold. We just had to throw our hands up in the air and trust that our publisher had our best interests in mind and hand it over.
And I think too at a certain point it was always sort of like a labor of love. It was a project. Yeah. It was something that was like a really awesome idea, and we really wanted to make it. But I don't think any of us thought we were going to be millionaires.
No.
So be realistic.
Yeah, we were realistic about it. Yeah, but it was worth it, right?
Yeah, totally.
I heard someone once say that, and I say this all the time, that a book isn't going to make you rich. It's essentially a very expensive business card that you're making for yourself.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And it makes you kind of be more established, kind of more legit, Like, not everybody writes a book or has a book with their name on it.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot more work that goes into it and not as much comes back as you think might come back.
Exactly. They wrote a book.
Writers aren't rich. Maybe J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, exactly.
Not us.
But it's just so freaking cool that you guys
did
you can
see that sitting on the shelf.
I think that's the reward in it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So what's it like just having the physical copy right here?
It's really cool to see it in the flesh.
Oh yeah, it was. My goodness, I think we all cried.
Yeah.
Didn't you lie down on the floor?
Yeah, I carried it around and didn't want to put it down.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain, I think, because it was torturous at times, it was joyful at times, it was frustrating at times, and then it was so rewarding in the end to sit here and to be talking about it. We're always curious. The biggest reward that I am getting out of it now is not seeing it and not holding it, but it's talking to people who are experiencing it and using it.
And seeing images.
Exactly. So that's where I'm getting the greatest joy out of it. They said that they sold over 400 copies in 1 month. If you think about that, it's $50. That's $20,000. That's $20,000 that someone has invested, that people have invested in this book. That was, just created from these 3 minds right here.
And it's turning into something more than we realize. Many local photographers are purchasing it and giving it to their brides as a guide for them to plan their wedding days, especially photographers that are featured within it. People are buying it for giveaways, for Instagram contests.
Mothers and aunts are giving it as gifts. Bridesmaids are buying it for their girlfriends.
Yeah.
Couples are coming to meet me. I'm booking clients from it. People are inquiring with me, and we're getting bookings because of it. But then people are also saying, I bought your book and we really enjoyed the first section where we're planning for our engagement and we're planning for our marriage and our future. Yeah. So we spent a lot of time in writing the book, really drilling down the importance of, yes, you're planning a wedding, but more importantly, you're planning for a marriage. Mm-hmm. And now I'm having real conversations with couples who are like, yes, you really put it into perspective that while this wedding is important, the marriage is even more so. And they're flipping through, they're drinking wine and they're writing their hopes and dreams for their future. Mm-hmm. And that's I think the most rewarding element for me from it.
I find lots of brides and grooms, my brother and his fiance are at the point now where they're like, we just want to get the wedding over with.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And they were so excited, but now they have to kind of step back and think we're actually getting married.
Yes. Yeah.
We're going to be a husband and wife, not a bride and a groom.
Exactly.
And that's something that's really great in your book, is that like it puts it into perspective.
Yeah. And I
like,
think,
what's the point of this?
I think it's a testament, what you just said there, because I felt that, and I know a lot of couples experience this as they get close to their wedding. We just can't wait to get the wedding over with.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I think planning a wedding is like almost like a test. It's like a test of a relationship. And it's like you have to like pass this test. And the closer you get to the test, the more you just want to get on the other side of it. And, you know, I honestly think, you know, that's like kind of sad. It's like, boo-boo, they should be enjoying their engagement. But at the same time, they're looking forward to their marriage.
Right.
And that's important. And I think that's something that, you know, planning for a wedding does to a couple who are truly in love, and this book will allow them to walk through that, I think, in a joyful way.
So one last question before we let you guys go. Things you would do differently
Good question.
for your next book, maybe?
Wait until all the text is edited to design it.
How about you, Lisa?
Oh, I don't know. Coming into this for a second try, another chance, another go, I think that we're much more informed now. We have a better idea of how the whole process works, and we would probably be a lot more likely to ask questions and get things moving along at a quicker pace, only because I think we waited for guidance that we didn't really, maybe we shouldn't have expected. But we waited for guidance when we could have taken things a little bit more in our own hands and push through. Yeah,
I agree. My learning experience, or what I would do differently, would be to lower my expectations. So after writing it and getting it all out and getting over those hurdles, here it came, and we had this idea, or our publisher had this idea for us to do some book signings and to do some event and promotion surrounding the book. And, you know, you hear about book signings and people lining up the doors with your book in hand, and they're waiting outside the building eager to get you to sign their book. And, you know, you read excerpts and little children are sitting on the mat in front of you, and it's a whole thing. Those were my expectations, and I was quickly humbled. Beat right back down to reality when we had our first book signing on Saturday at Chapters in Dartmouth, and it was super busy at the store, and the only people who came to see us were my grandparents, my parents, and a few of our friends, a few of our industry friends who were featured within the book. So then a few weeks later, Rebecca and I drove all the way up to Sydney, Cape Breton, 10-hour drive, stayed the night, expenses all the way, all the things. Not a single person, not one person came to get their book signed. Didn't even crack a book. We didn't sell a single book. We had conversations with people, like lovely. Let me just preface this by saying we make the best out of every situation that we're thrown into. So we still see the positive in it. But I certainly needed to humble myself in thinking that this book was going to be something bigger than what it actually is.
You thought it was going to be more like Michelle Obama vibes.
Exactly. Just like Michelle
Impact
Obama.
is just, it's very niche, right?
Niche.
The East Coast wedding world, it's very niche.
Exactly.
So you guys, I can say with certainty that you guys did impact the industry here. It's just that not every one of them is going to be out to Chapters.
And it's funny because I didn't expect there to be lineups at the door, but I thought we would sign at least one book for one bride, and we haven't. Yeah. We still have yet to sign a book for a bride. Yep. Actually, we signed a few at the wedding show. For the bridal show. Yeah. But we have another book launch coming up, or we have a book launch and another book signing, so there's still hope.
So we might get one.
Yeah.
But anything else you guys would like to add today?
I think that creating a book was incredibly rewarding, and I wouldn't have changed it for the world, and I'm so glad I got to do it with you two. And if it wasn't for you two, I never would have done it.
Exactly. Same here. Yeah.
I would have just been designing an invitation on a 5x7 for the rest of my life. But as much trials and tribulations came from it, it was all so well worth it.
I completely agree.
Go team.
Very good
team.
Very
Well,
good
thanks,
learning
guys,
experience.
and thanks for including all your industry friends. Jane and I have a little section in there.
Yeah.
But it's so kind of you to involve everybody around, and the collaboration was amazing, and it just doesn't benefit you three. It benefits the industry as a whole. So thanks so much, and thanks for coming on, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Bye.